I want to first talk about today's goals. This is really designed to inform, inspire, and empower, okay? If you search beginning running program on Google, you're going to get close to 1 billion results. I actually just did this yesterday, and it's 937 million results. So I think for people who want to start a running program or are interested in kind of getting off the couch, so to speak, and improving their fitness, they go to Google, they type in beginning running program, and it's very easy to be distracted and overwhelmed by all these programs and gadgets and equipment and apps. And so really the primary goal today is really to cut through the clutter and to provide you a proven, practical, and realistic beginning runner program that you can incorporate into your day. It's designed to be very accessible, designed to kind of fit right into your daily routine, not require a lot of time. Also, as I said, proven. So it's something that has been executed. I've done this program myself. I lead a 10-week program every fall, actually at my local grade school, where parents and community members join me, and I lead that. Prior to that, this program I led at a running store, and we did this for a number of years as well. And I saw a tremendous success rate in kind of putting this plan to action. So we're going to introduce that program today, but peppered within that, I'm also going to introduce a little bit about the necessary mindset and what it takes to kind of succeed in this program, and share some concrete tips for that. And as I said, really try to empower and inspire you, give you the information you need, but not overwhelm you, not give you too much, not kind of scare you away or anything. And then I'll address any questions you might have with knowledge, experience, and sincerity, and certainly try to do that. But the real point here is let's give you the key info so you can go, okay? Before we get into that, I'd like to talk a little bit about why. Why should we kind of pursue something like this? If you're here today with us, presumably you're intrigued by the idea of improving your fitness, about maybe kind of getting into running. And I think that's a great thing, and really want to commend you for that. But when we talk about the value of physical fitness, again, I'm a proponent of forward movement. I do not own stock in running. I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm a proponent of trying to help people be their best selves. And when we think about why people run, the American College of Sports Medicine recommends 150 minutes of exercise per week, but yet only 20% of people reach that. So there's decades of mounting scientific evidence tied to the value of physical activity, that it's good for the body. We think about things such as lower blood pressure, lower stroke rates, lower heart attack and cancer risk rates. Then we think about how it's good for the mind, lower rates of anxiety, depression, and memory loss, improves cognitive function as well. I just came across a study actually 2 days ago that was of those clinically diagnosed with depression that supported the notion that regular exercise alleviates feelings of depression and anger in those individuals. So we see a lot of good benefits for the body and for the mind. Certainly we see today with COVID, more people out walking and running. If you just kind of peruse your neighborhood, they're out running, walking, biking. There's a lot more movement going on, which I think is great. The great thing about walking and running specifically, there's no elaborate equipment you need really. There's no membership fees. And it is the most fundamental, at the most fundamental level, all you really need is your will. So again, we talk about exercise being the best preventative medicine. It increases energy and reduces fatigue, contributes to longevity and youthfulness. These gains are very accessible, and walking and running can be a part of that. And again, something that's very accessible and something you can incorporate into your daily life. And so that's really what we're going to try to do today, give you that plan. But before we do that, I want to introduce you to someone who I think you know. This is OPRAH. I presume you're familiar with her. At age 40, she ran the 1994 Marine Corps Marathon in Washington, D.C. Oprah has openly acknowledged her struggles with weight and health and diet. And I always say that if she can do 26.2 miles, you can do 3.1 miles. Some other fun facts, some other notables who've completed marathons, the comedian Will Ferrell, as well as former President George W. Bush. So we have people who kind of are across the spectrum, people who don't look like those maybe small Kenyans winning the gold medals at the Olympics. Again, very running and walking, very democratic activity, and really a way to improve your fitness and things that you can accomplish and really kind of pursue your own fitness goals. I want to introduce you to a woman I know named Jean. So this is Jean. I met Jean when she was 67 years old. She had just recently retired, and she was a reasonably fit 67-year-old. She took some general fitness classes at her local Y, including some cycling classes, but had never, ever done running. She was intrigued by it, but she was unsure of where to start. And she had a concern that so many of you have, especially if it comes to entering a race. It's, well, what if I finish last? And I always joke, well, you're not going to finish first, but you're not going to finish last either. And Jean certainly found that out. So Jean started the exact same program I'm about to introduce to you right now, okay? So we're going to call this a Couch to 5K program. Some people call them a Walk to Run program, but let's just lay out the basics of what this is. It is a 10-week program. We're doing 30-minute workouts, mixing walking, which is the foundation of the fitness pyramid, and running. We're completing the workout 3 to 4 times each week. Now, each week builds on the previous week, and there's a gradual increase in running time. If there's any teachers out there or bricklayers, perhaps, we think of the term scaffolding, where we're trying to basically get a fundamental level down and build on top of that, one level at a time. But we can't jump levels. We're just going to kind of keep building that base, and then we could kind of layer on top of that. So that's really the plan here. Now, each week, as I said, kind of builds on the previous week. The goal is to run a 5K race, which is 3.1 miles from start to finish. So that's kind of where our end game, where we're trying to get. Obviously, this has been challenged by the coronavirus pandemic, where there are few, if any, physical or events or races out there. But as I think so many of us have learned how to do throughout the last 3 months or so, we've really had to learn how to adopt the spirit of these times and adapt. So that 5K event, identifying kind of a target 5K event and working backwards, we might have to be a little flexible with that, just given where things are in the world today. So I've introduced what a Couch to 5K program is. Now I want to talk about, let's talk about just some basic things that we maybe need to know as we kind of get into this. I favor something called the KISS method, which I presume some of you might be familiar with. KISS stands for Keep It Simple, Stupid. So I just think it's simple. Let's boil things down to the most basic level. Keep things nice, simple, direct, not overly complicated, not filling it with jargon, anything like that. So one thing we have to be really understanding of here is that be patient. The body needs time to adapt. As I mentioned, this is a 10-week program. Quite ironically, the first 3 weeks will probably almost certainly be the most difficult for a lot of you folks. We're asking our body to do something new. And when we do that, especially something that's physical, as walking and running are, our body's capable of doing it, but it needs time to adapt to that stress that we're putting on it. And so patience here is so critical, especially in those first 3 weeks. It's not only patience, but it's some perseverance as well, and kind of moving through this in a very progressive way, and understanding that there's going to be some soreness, some fatigue, some shortness of breath. Again, our body is capable of a lot. It just takes some time to adapt to that. And if I may, I'm going to use a little bit of an analogy that's a little far-fetched, but I hope it at least paints the picture for you. I think of pregnancy, and the pregnancy, there's a tremendous amount of stress that is put on the body throughout pregnancy, from weight gain to just so many things changing. But the body does it, but it happens over a 9-month period, not a 1-month period. And so again, that's a tremendous amount. There's an example of something where so much stress and change is put on the body, but the human body is a real marvel and it could adapt to that. It just takes time. And so it's the same principle, same idea here. We're going to put some new stress on the body, but it's going to take time. Give it time to adapt, kind of persevere, especially through those first 3 weeks. And so allow your body, as I said, you're doing 3 to 4 workouts every week. Just do however many you can fit in your schedule, but allow your body time to recover and try to minimize those back-to-back workouts. So in an ideal world, let's say you're able to do this 3 times a week. Well, then it might be every Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. Or it might be, if you could do it, say 4 times a week, maybe you do it on Sunday, and then Monday, and then Wednesday, and then Friday. So you want to try to minimize those back-to-back workouts, again, giving your body time to adapt and recover. And that's kind of pretty important here. If we kind of move forward and we talk about, again, just basic elements here, don't worry about pace. People will say, well, how fast is too fast? Or how fast should my walk be? Or how fast should I be running? I always say, in terms of the walk portion of the workout, and again, we'll get into the specifics of this, in terms of the walk portion, whatever you do as you're walking into the grocery store, that's a walk. It's that simple. As you're strolling through the mall, that's your walking pace. We don't need to focus on anything kind of more elaborate than that. When you talk about running in terms of that pace, it's just having that body in a running cadence. Just keep moving forward, but don't worry about if you're going too slow or too fast. Find that comfortable space within yourself. Ideally, it should be something, if you want kind of another guide point, it should be conversational pace, we say, which means you shouldn't be huffing and puffing, and not able to spit out words. You'd want, if somebody was running next to you, to have the ability to have a conversation with them, to ask them questions, to answer their questions, to interact with one another. That's the kind of pace you should shoot for, which even as you're running, that's what you're pursuing. If you can, to that point, corral a workout buddy. There is certainly great accountability in having somebody who can do this with you and alongside you. And there's also, at its most basic level, running and walking, when you're doing it outside, can be a social activity. And it's a way to connect with your old college friend, even if it's even on the phone, actually, if you have some headphones. It's a way to kind of interact with people, especially I think now some of us kind of crave that around these times. But if you can corral a workout buddy, there's a social benefit to that, as well as an accountability benefit as well. And you can kind of approach this together. Do not be intimidated by running jargon and gear and gadgets and people telling you that you have to have this or that, or you got to invest in these high-end shoes or anything like that. Don't be intimidated by those things. At your most basic level, when I think about what you need to complete this program, it is a quality pair of running shoes, a stopwatch, and a notebook. And I'm going to take each of those point by point here. Quality running shoes, the running shoes that you would find at a mass market chain department store, such as a Kohl's or a JCPenney, those are very different than what you would find at a run specialty store. You actually in Schaumburg have access, pretty close, immediate access to 2 of the best running stores in America. That's not me saying that. They both just recently got that award. That's Dick Pond Athletics. That's on Algonquin Road in Hoffman Estates, as well as Extra Mile Running, which is on Schaumburg Road right there in Schaumburg. The folks at both of those stores, these are specialty stores. You can call them, ask them how you can come in and get fitted for a pair of shoes, what you might need to bring. These folks are in the business of looking at your feet, talking to you about your fitness goals, watching you run and walk, and then making well-informed, well-educated recommendations on the type of shoe you should need. And the shoes that they have on their wall, unlike say a Kohl's or a JCPenney, are made specifically for performance running. So they're going to have much more resilient materials, much more durable materials, much more comfortable materials, and so you'll get what you pay for in that regard. The second essential you'll need is a stopwatch. This program that I'm about to introduce, it is based on time. So somehow you need to know when your walking portion is up and it's time to start your running. Then you need to know when your running portion is over and you could start walking. So you need to have some way to kind of monitor the time and know when it's time to walk and when it's run and kind of when those specific intervals are. The other thing you need that is probably 99 cents at Walgreens if you don't have one lying around the house is a notebook. I think a notebook is good simply to record what you're doing. And it forces you to kind of be reflective on what you're doing, and also compels you to write things down, kind of be really cognizant of what you're doing. And subsequently, I think you'll start to notice some progress as well. And that could be very encouraging for you. So doing a note, just kind of recording, very simple, the date of the workout, what the workout was, just a bullet point or two on how you felt. You might want to say things like, had a cup of coffee beforehand, did not sit well with me, or did this run at night and really enjoyed that. And so now you're being reflective on what you're doing and trying to kind of find that sweet spot of what works for you and what kind of makes this a more enjoyable, positive experience for you. And so that's really the advantage of a notebook. Pretty simple thing to do. So before I get into the specifics of the program, I just want to take a quick moment, because often when I give this program, I have people say, I'm not really interested in running. I want to get kind of the benefits of physical activity, but again, I want to challenge myself a bit more, but I'm not, running doesn't necessarily appeal to me, but walking does. That's okay, perfectly fine. So I'll just tell you that if you're out there and you're in that boat of someone who's not really interested in running, but wants to improve your physical fitness, maybe challenge yourself a little more, when I present these, the workouts where it says walk, you're walking, and then when it says run, during the run period, take that away and just walk faster. So subsequently, you'll have two walking paces, essentially. You'll have one kind of very normal, casual pace, and then you'll have one walking pace that's more accelerated. So I hope that makes sense to you folks. So again, if you're not interested in running, when I say run, just replace that with walk fast, okay? Also, because we're obviously doing this virtual, when I do this program live, I happily give a handout to everyone there that says what the program is. Obviously, because we're doing this virtual, there's not a handout. So I'm going to encourage you to take notes and just so you kind of can mark down what the program is, and you have notes on the program specifics and kind of what you need to do each week. And I'm just going to give you some moments to jot those things down, okay? So without further ado, let's kind of jump in to what this program looks like, okay? So week one, again, 10-week program. We're starting here with week one. We're going to do walk 4 minutes, run 2 minutes. Now, that walk 4 minutes, run 2 minutes, that's what we call a cycle, okay? So that is a 6-minute cycle. The 4 minutes of walking plus the 2 minutes of running, that's 6 minutes. So the cycle is 6 minutes. We complete that 5 times. That's our 30-minute workout. Every workout we're going to do here is 30 minutes. The great thing about that is it should be a little bit easier to plug in your day. It's not an hour or an hour and a half. 30 minutes hopefully is something that is very accessible and something you can weave into your daily routine. We do always start with a walk, with the exception of 1 week, and I'll explain that a little bit later. But the point is, with the walk, we kind of slowly elevate our heart rate, and then we get into a run. Okay? So again, this week 1 cycle, walk 4 minutes, run 2 minutes. You're going to try to do that 3 to 4 times throughout the week. Okay? And then you can progress on to week 2. Before I move on as well, I often get people who say, you know, I don't know if I want quite a 10-week program. I'm a little skittish about jumping into this too aggressively. Will it be too much for me? Perfectly valid concerns, okay? So if you want to be more conservative here, what I might encourage you to do then is to make this 10-week program, turn it into a 20-week program, and double up on each week. Okay, so you can do the week 1 workout, 1 week for 7 days, and then you repeat it the next 7 days, and then you jump on to the week 2 workout. Okay, so there's a way you're just kind of doubling up each week's workouts. So you do each week twice, and then jump on to the next week. So that's kind of a way to kind of maybe enter this a little bit more conservatively if you want to be a little bit more cautious or things like that. But again, if we kind of talk about week 1 cycle, walk 4 minutes, run 2 minutes. So let's move on to week 2. Here again, we're going to increase that running just a pinch. We're going to walk 3 minutes and run 3 minutes. And we're going to do that cycle 5 times. And again, I'm going to just give folks a chance to write that down. Walk 3 minutes, run 3 minutes, complete that 5 times. Again, we're doing that 3 to 4 times throughout the week. As we move on to week 3, again, we're going to pinch up that running just a little bit. We still got some nice walking recovery time in here, but we're going to pinch the run up a little bit. Walk 2.5 minutes and run for 5 minutes. We're going to complete that 4 times. So again, you see the cycle there, walk 2.5 minutes, run 5 minutes. That's 7.5 minutes. Complete that 4 times. There's our 30-minute workout. As I said early on in this, and this is an idea I will come back to, I just want to really emphasize it, be patient, and just kind of, especially in these first 3 weeks, if this is something you really want to do, really focus on sticking it out these first 3 weeks. These first 3 weeks, as I said, will probably be the toughest because again, we're asking our body to do something new. Our body has to learn how to adapt to that stress and kind of understand, hey, what are you asking me to do? That's what your body's going to be saying to you. This is not something you've asked me to do before. This is awkward. I'm not ready for this. It just takes time for your body to kind of catch up with where your mind or your motivation may be. But it happens. If any of you have read research around habit forming, a lot of research shows that it takes 21 days to form a habit. So if you do things for 21 straight days, let's say you woke up for 21 straight days at 6 a.m. every day, all of a sudden your body would start to recognize that and start to adapt to that. And naturally, your circadian rhythms would kind of hit to that. So if you did something like again, these habits of just maybe you want to do a certain amount of push-ups, every day, or crunches every day, or even something not physical. You want to write a book or write down your family history. And if you do that an hour a day, that eventually goes from just something you do daily to ingrained as a habit. And the same thing applies here with the body, that it takes about 21 days for you to form a habit. And that's essentially really what we're trying to do here. And that's why these first 3 weeks are so critical to kind of be patient and work through. Okay. So I will tell you though, I believe in having some fun. So after you get through these first 3 weeks, Don't be afraid to celebrate that milestone. Go get an ice cream cone or something. Don't deprive yourself. It's a big deal when you get through these first 3 weeks. You've really climbed over one of the big mountains here. So feel good about that, and have some fun with that. Let's move on to week 4. So the week 4 cycle is walk 3 minutes, run 7 minutes, and we're going to complete that 3 times. And again, I'll give you folks a moment to just jot that down. Walk 3 minutes, run 7 minutes, complete it 3 times for your 30-minute workout. Hopefully around this point, you will start seeing some of those benefits maybe you hope to see, right? Maybe you're seeing better sleep, better mood, you're seeing some weight loss, you're seeing a bit more energy. Some of those things perhaps you were hopeful to see should start kind of clicking in around this time in particular, because again, we've been at it now for 3 weeks. Our body's starting to adapt to it, and we should start to see some of those benefits that, as I said earlier, that running can kind of give. Blood pressure going down, less fatigue, better sleep, some things like that. When we move on to week 5, we're looking at walk 2 minutes, run 8 minutes. So here we have a 10-minute cycle, and we're going to complete that 3 times. One thing I want to stress is take time to savor some of those improvements that you're seeing. So if you look at this week 5, you're running for 8 minutes. If you go back to week 1, you're doing 2-minute running segments. So now here in week 5, you're doing 4 times what you were doing before. I hope you can kind of celebrate that progress. I think during the first week, and certainly the first 2 weeks, really, you're going to have moments where maybe you're struggling during that 2-minute run segment during the first week in particular. And you might say, oh my God, I'm looking at this plan, and in week 5, I got to run 8 minutes. How am I going to do that when I can't even run 2? But again, just put down those bricks like a bricklayer, like you're building a house, one upon another, and it will actually become a little easier. And what you'll find is that in this week 5 cycle, you're going to blow through 2 minutes. It's going to feel like nothing. So it will feel a lot easier because, again, your body will start to adapt, learn what you're asking to do, going to adapt to that stress, and going to really kind of progress. Okay? So take time to savor those improvements in the way that you're really bypassing things that might have seemed really hard a few weeks prior. Now, we move on to week 6, and this is the only week that's a little funky, okay? We're going to start with a run, not a walk, and there's a physiological reason for doing so that I'll explain for a minute. But we're going to run for 9 minutes, we're going to walk for 2 minutes, run 9 minutes, walk 2 minutes, run 8. That is our 30-minute workout here during week 6. Now, we've had 5 weeks of building toward this, okay? So we start with a run because we're going to take our body into something called oxygen debt. And I don't want to get too geeky on you here because, again, I believe in the KISS method and keeping it real simple. But oxygen debt is basically the point in which our body says, okay, I need to dig a little bit further into my reserves, okay? And that happens for most of us around 9 minutes, okay? So we're going to plunge our body into oxygen debt, and then for 9 minutes, and then we're going to back off it for 2 minutes with a walk. We're going to allow ourselves to recover, casually moving forward. Then we're going to get right back into a 9-minute run segment, back off it for about 2 minutes, and then get right back into another run segment of 8 minutes to complete the workout. Very consciously, we're trying to tax our aerobic system, which is basically cardiovascular strength. We're trying to really tax it here in this workout. This is a big week, and I talked about the first 3 weeks being kind of a critical, like a mountain to climb. You kind of got to get over that discomfort you might be feeling. The body has to learn to adapt to the stress you're putting on it. So the first 3 weeks are one hill. Getting to the next 3 weeks here, getting up to week 6, that's kind of the next big mountain to climb. But it's a big week and a big accomplishment. You're really breaking through a barrier. This is a real key workout here in the way that this program, this 10-week program is set up. So when you get through this one, celebrate it again. Get yourself an ice cream cone. Don't be afraid. Have some fun with it, okay? This feel good about the progress you're making here if you complete this workout and do it 3 or 4 times during week 6, okay? Let's move on to week 7. Here we have a new cycle: walk 1 minute, run 9 minutes, and we're going to complete that 3 times. And again, I'll give you a moment just to write that down. Walk 1 minute, run 9 minutes, complete 3 times. As we move on to week 8, we're going to walk 2 minutes, run 13 minutes. So if you go back early on in this program, there was kind of just these small little jumps in the run time, right? We went from 2 minutes of running, a 2-minute running interval in week 1. In week 2, we go to a 3-minute running interval. Well, here between week 7 and week 8, we have a 4-minute jump in the run interval. That's because your body is really starting to recognize what you're asking it to do. Don't be scared of this run 13 minutes. Again, you're not being asked to do that tomorrow. You have 8 weeks to kind of build your body up to this, okay? At any point throughout this program, some of you just walking and running these 13 minutes at a casual pace is going to be plenty for you, okay? Some of you out there may say, you know what? My body's handling this pretty well. I think I can kind of push this a little bit more. If that is something you'd like to do, there are a few different ways you can do that, okay? So if you want to kind of tax yourself or kind of test yourself and challenge yourself a little bit more as you go through this program because you feel you can handle it, there's 3 key ways you can do that. One is to vary the intensity of your running portions, which is to say, try to run a little faster, try to increase that pace, okay? One then is to also vary the frequency. So if you're doing it 3 times a week, try to jump to do the workout 4 times a week. There's another way you can kind of challenge yourself a little bit more and try to eke out more physical benefit, okay? Another way is to vary the route. So maybe you can hit a running, hit your path where you whether it be a path or the forest preserve, or maybe there's some inclines or maybe a little hill or something. That's another way to increase the heart rate. If you can kind of get some inclines and some grades and some rises, that's another way to kind of really kind of tax the body a little bit more. So if you feel you need a little bit more challenge, vary the intensity, which is to say increase the pace. Vary the frequency, which is to say add an extra workout day into your week. And then also a third one, vary the route, specifically looking for things that have inclines. So hopefully that answers some of the questions you folks might have out there if you're interested in kind of challenging yourself a little bit more, okay? Let's week on to week 9. This is the penultimate week. Here we have walk 1 minute, run 14 minutes, and we're going to complete that 2 times. So a very small walk portion, and then we're going to try to run for 14 minutes, and we're going to do that twice. All right, week 10. Ideally, this would be a 5K race, and I tell you to be like Jean. She's down there in the lower right corner wearing the red top. Jean went on, who I introduced Jean earlier. Jean not only finished the Couch to 5K program that my group was running at the running store, Jean went on to finish many 5Ks, moved up to longer distances. This is Jean actually finishing the Soldier Field 10-mile race. She went on to finish half marathons and even a few marathons as well. So she's a real marvel, and she's a real hero to me, to be honest. So I talk about a 5K race. So the idea here is that in week 10, you're able to run approximately a full 30 minutes. A 5K race would likely be more than that for some of you folks. But the idea is that you'd be able to run a full 5K race. So without there being races, well, very few, if any, local races for folks to run now. Usually there's 5K races all throughout the Chicago area on a given weekend. That is not the case now. But you can do a few things. You can mark your own 5K course. Google Maps, you can do that with. Figure out what is a 3.1 miles kind of in my neighborhood or something like that. You can also sign up if you want to add a little bit more flavor and punch to it. Sign up for a virtual race. These are going on all across the country right now, hosted by running stores and races. So many of these races that typically might take place in downtown Chicago, for instance, now have a virtual option because the physical race is not taking place. But it's a way where you can sign up, you could print out a bid, you can get the t-shirt, you can get the goodie bag, you can get some added benefits and kind of try to mimic that 5K race a little bit and just get a little bit more of that race energy into this program you've been doing. So we're in a little bit of odd times, obviously, because it's, I think, a great thing to have this 5K race you can put on your calendar, knowing it's a goal out there, and then setting up this program, 10 weeks in advance to really march towards that 5K race and to have that great feeling, as Gene does here in this photo, of crossing the finish line of a race and having that feeling of accomplishment. But again, unfortunately, you may have to adapt and evolve given where we are and the fact that there's really no physical races out in the world today. So let's talk about, I've given you some kind of understanding, hopefully, of what you need to be aware of with this program. I've introduced each of the 10 weeks. Now let's talk about some other things, some tips when it gets tough, because when you are going through this program, you're going to have certainly moments when it gets tough. And you say, oh, I don't know if I'll be able to get through this workout. You're going to look at your watch, say, when you have to do an 8-minute run interval and it's going to say 4 minutes, and you're going to say, oh, I don't know how I'm going to make it the next 4 minutes, and it's going to be very easy to give up, to quit. And hopefully here's some tips that when you reach that point, because we all reach that point, even the, those guys who win the Olympic gold medals in races, they reach those points too. And they find strategies to get them out of that and to really kind of push themselves to kind of move forward. So when it gets tough, here are some things you can do. Take it in baby steps. So the thing is rather than looking at your watch and saying, oh my God, I got another 4 minutes to do, I got another 4 minutes to run, which can be maybe daunting to you if you're struggling. That seems like a lot of time. Don't focus on that 4 minutes, but rather say, you know what, I'm going to make it to that stop sign up there. I'm going to make it to that tree up there. I'm going to make it to that red car. I'm going to make it to that mailbox. I'm going to make it to that street. So divide that 4 minutes, just chop it up into smaller pieces. So it's not that 4 minutes that seems so daunting. You're now chopping it up, and I just want to make it to that tree. And then when you make it to that tree, say, well, I just want to make it to that red car. So let's chop it up and that's something that's always worked well for me, is to take those baby steps rather than looking at it as one whole. Chop it up and try to make it a whole, and just say I can make it chop it up into very manageable pieces. Okay. Some other strategies when it gets tough: sing a song in your head. So basically, what we're trying to do here is just simply distract the mind from some discomfort we're feeling, right? Kind of push our mind elsewhere instead of saying, oh my God, how am I going to do this? This doesn't feel fun or good. Sing a song in your head, okay? Another way to distract the mind: count to 100. Quite oddly, odds are you probably won't reach 100. Your mind kind of will sometimes wander off, and you probably won't ever make it to 100. I confess I don't know the the intellectual reasons for that, but a lot of research, actually some research has been done on that, in that when we're working out and we try to count to 100, we actually struggle to actually reach 100. But again, it's really this trick to kind of distract the mind a little bit. Another tip that could work is visualization. One that you might think of, especially if you pair it with another sensory thing, which is think about audio, is visualize a train's moving wheels. You think about a train going like this, and you think about the sound a train makes. It really kind of feels and can kind of match the cadence of your running. You're running and you kind of visualize that train moving. Another way to kind of take your mind off discomfort you're feeling and just kind of try to find that strategy to move ahead. One other thing you can do is wiggle your arms at your side. Okay, so one of the things that happens, particularly when we get stressed and we start to fatigue or we get tired, is our body tenses up a little bit. We've got to keep relaxed and smooth as much as possible. So you take your arms and you just wiggle them at your side, just down below. Just kind of release some of that tension that's building up perhaps. Another great thing is obviously when we get tired, from terms of like our breathing, we're breathing really heavy, right? And sometimes when we do that, we're not really able to get that maximum oxygen. And oxygen is the lifeblood of what we need here to kind of plow through and reach and keep on moving forward. So we want to take a moment, so slow down a little bit, keep that running form going, but just slow down, breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth, and do it in a very controlled rhythm. Fill up those lungs and do it again and again, and just kind of calm your body down. Take in as much oxygen as you can and push it out, okay? Let's talk about where to run, okay? I really am going to suggest safe and as much as possible traffic-free routes, such as around a school or a park. Certainly you can run in your neighborhood. I don't think any parts of Schaumburg are maybe that trafficy. But if you can go around, say, a school or a park, if there's not a dedicated path there, if you think about a school, for instance, a lot of times there might only be 1, 2, 3, or 4 driveways. And this time of year, those driveways probably aren't even in use. So if you run around a school, you're getting probably a good chunk of distance, but you're not you don't have to worry about cars. You don't have to worry about some bikes or other people, but you don't have to worry about cars at least. It's a little bit easier maneuver, and it's just a little bit safer to kind of get around. Trails are another great place to go. Obviously, in Schaumburg, you have access to Bussey Woods, which is one of the great paths in the Chicago area. Great place to go where you can run for miles and walk for miles and just kind of execute your workout pretty easily in a pretty safe environment. Tracks are another place to go. Some of the public high schools I know around me here in the northwest side of Chicago and neighboring suburbs, some of the public high schools have opened up their tracks, so now you can get on them. During COVID, that was not the case, but some have them open, some don't. But tracks are a great place to go. One of the great things about tracks in particular, it can get boring just kind of running in an oval. But at the same time, you can kind of monitor your progress. Every lap is a quarter mile. So 4 laps equals a mile on an outdoor or standard outdoor track. So you can then, in that notebook, record, I did 7.5 laps today. And then the next week, when you do a workout, you can say, oh, I did 8.5 laps. And you can kind of see that progress. Tracks are a great place to go. Again, safe, not much going on there. Maybe some soccer balls flying perhaps, but usually a pretty safe place to go as long as they're open. Treadmills are certainly an option as well. And the thing I'll encourage you is to favor flat areas. Again, unless you really are kind of have an inkling to challenge yourself, where you might kind of take some of those incline areas, flat areas are going to be a great place to start, because we're not going to elevate the heart rate artificially, right? As flat as we can go, that's generally a good thing, okay? So let's get you some final tips to reach the finish line. If you have any questions, I think you can submit those to Annie right now, but let's talk about some final tips to reach the finish line. I think it's very important to schedule time for your workout, okay? So every day, before, I was just talking to Annie about this, every day before I go to bed, I make myself a little card that says what my next day is going to look like. And I put down from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, I'm doing this. From 9 o'clock to 10:30, I'm doing this. At 10:30, I have this phone call. At 11 o'clock, I'm going to run. And so I make a date with myself to put it on the calendar, to weave it into my day, to know it's on my calendar, and to get it done. If it's not there and I say, I'll just get to it later, inevitably, life gets in the way. I have 2 young ones. Life gets in the way, and I never get it done. But if I schedule time, I build it into my day, I'm a lot more likely to get it done. And I think that's true of so many of us. So make a date for yourself, put it on your calendar, understand how it could kind of fit into your day, whether it's something you got to do before maybe you begin your work day, or before kind of the kid duties kick in. Think about how you can kind of fit it into your day and what works for you. Again, it's 30 minutes. The workout is now, you got probably some prep time before that, and then you got the time after where maybe you need to shower and get something to eat and drink. So odds are you're probably looking at least an hour you actually need to schedule from beginning to end, from when you say leave your desk to when you come back to your desk. You probably need about an hour, but just schedule that time, and make it a priority if this is something you really want to achieve. Perseverance is necessary, particularly in those opening weeks. I talked about this and I'll reiterate it again. It's so easy early on to just stop. It's hard. It's going to be uncomfortable. I can't lie, because again, you're asking your body to do something new. It's so easy to just be overwhelmed by it. You think about some of the data you hear about New Year's resolutions, and obviously improved fitness is one that a lot of people have. So many of those by mid-January are gone. People haven't they've already given up their New Year's resolution by mid-January. Part of that is we haven't allowed our body to develop a habit, right? And that's that 21-day idea. But we got to kind of push through some of the discomfort, and again, be patient. Let your body adapt to the stress you're putting on it. Follow the plan. This plan is actually not put together mine. I wish I could take credit for it, but it's put together by the coaches and researchers at Brooks Sports, which is a prominent running shoe and running apparel brand. So they put this plan together. So it's based in a lot of science. There's a reason that we kind of are progressively going through it. Just stick to the plan. It's proven, it works. There's a lot of great science behind it. And so don't try to rush forward. But again, there's ways you can challenge yourself more by varying pace, or adding in some hills into the route of your run or workout. There's ways you can kind of challenge yourself within that, but don't try to step ahead. And like I said, if you want to be more conservative with it, just make the 10-week program a 20-week program, and do each of the week's workouts twice. So do it over a 2-week period versus a 1-week period. Focus on yourself and not others. So one of the things that's hard for me, I was a college athlete, college runner, and it's so simple for me now. I'm running on my trail, and I'm a fraction of the fitness level I was obviously when I was training every day as a young college student. And it can be frustrating as the high school team with their shirts off, all lean, they go flying by me doing a workout. And it's easy for me to say, oh God, and focus on how junky I feel that these little guys are just, these young dudes are flying by me. But I have to remind myself it's not about them. It's about my own fitness journey. And you have your own fitness journey here. Focus on yourself, not others, and not those people maybe going faster than you. If you get passed by people as you're out at Bussy Woods, they're on their own fitness journey. You're on yours, and you need to find your own kind of comfort here. And this is something I think is so important, is this last thing, is to embrace progress and focus on those gains. And that's one of the things I think that's great about having a notebook, is you'll have this ability to kind of track your progress and say, wow, during that first week, wow, I really struggled during those 2-minute running parts. But now look at me, I'm running 8 minutes and I'm doing okay with it, right? So embrace that progress, and then celebrate, if you find yourself losing 2 pounds, you find yourself having better sleep, things like that, celebrate that stuff, and embrace the fact that you're moving, you're on that fitness journey and you're progressing, and you're moving forward. So progress that. So with that, I will turn it over to Annie, because I think there were some questions that did come up. So I'd be glad to answer those as best I can, okay?
We have a couple of questions already. This first one is a multi-pronged question, so we'll take it a little bit at a time. The first part of it is, are there any tips for strength training to reduce running-related injuries? And then
okay,
for stretching before, after, both, and which exercises to reduce muscle tightness?
Gotcha. Yeah. So 2 prominent questions. I'll take the stretching one first. If I was to line 10 physicians up in front of a group, just 10 random physicians, and I said, hey, is it beneficial for people to incorporate some physical activity in their life, maybe a walking program or running program, just some kind of physical activity? Odds are very high. All 10 physicians would say, yeah, there's real benefit to that. Okay. Now, let's say I have 10 physical therapists in front of me. And I say, in terms of stretching, I say, okay, should I stretch before a run or after a run? We're not going to get a consensus answer there, actually. So you'll have different schools of thought here. Some people say that if you stretch before a run, at that point, your body, if you get out of bed and you walk around a little bit, let's say you do your workout in the morning. So you get out of bed, you walk around a little bit, you kind of wake yourself up a little bit. Well, your muscles are so tight and so firm that to stretch them, it's like putting Laffy Taffy in the freezer. Like, there's just not going to be much pliability in them. So one of the great things about, I think, this workout is that I think by starting with the walking early on, you're kind of allowing your body to kind of wake up a little bit and then get into the running. And some people say it's actually, some physical therapists and fitness pros will say it's actually more beneficial to stretch after a run. I think the bottom line is that you have, I'm scared of, I don't believe necessarily in absolutes, like one is right or one is wrong. I think the important thing is that you are stretching, and just some basic stretches. So a basic hamstring stretch, which is just either the most basic one is just bending over at the hip and trying to reach and touch your toes as you're standing. Just kind of reach down towards those toes as you're standing. A basic calf stretch, holding your, kind of pushing the wall, having your hands on the wall and letting your calf, kind of pushing that calf down and back. All things that are pretty accessible on Google, by the way. Like if you just typed in basic calf stretch, basic hamstring stretch, those are probably the 2 key areas you'll need to get at. In terms of strength training, let me actually go back to stretching. So I think the bottom line is that you're doing something. So whether you do before or after, find your own comfort zone in that. Some of you may find you need to do it before the workout, that is, but to do it, right away might not work. So maybe you'll want to just, let's say you're going to do your 30-minute workout at the local school, right? That's where you find is a nice, comfortable place to do it. And it's a 2-block walk over there. well, then walk the 2 blocks there, do a little light stretching there, and then begin your workout. So there's a way you can kind of, but I think every body will respond a little bit differently. But I think the important thing is that you're doing some kind of stretching, and it does not have to be 20, 30 minutes. Honestly, just a basic hamstring and calf stretch for most of us will probably do. Okay. In terms of strength training, you can certainly do things to minimize the impact of injury. Stretching is probably going to be the real key thing there. But in terms of strength training, crunches are a great way to kind of build up that core. The core is meaning so just some basic crunches. The core is kind of the fulcrum of our body. And so it's what kind of connects our legs to move, will make kind of moving a little bit easier and more flexible. But I really think stretching and just some basic exercises will probably do the trick for most of us.
Great. Our next question is, if you can already run a mile straight, but want to be able to go further, do you still start at the beginning of the program that you've discussed?
Okay, so in that particular case, you may be able to jump ahead maybe to week 2, maybe week 3. If you feel, hey, I can already run a mile straight, I'm comfortable doing that. I think week 3 is probably your good place to start. But again, I think if you want to be just a little bit more cautious and conservative and just make sure you're kind of really building into it, I would probably start at week 1 and kind of build yourself into it. Because even though you can run a mile straight, remember, we're trying to layer things on top of this. And sometimes just that taking a more simple, cautious approach is perhaps a good way to go about doing it.
Great. And then what about hydration? What do you recommend? Do you bring a water bottle with you or try and drink before or after? So
definitely you want some pre-hydration, especially in times we're in right now. Hydration is going to be absolutely key. Even if it was 30 degrees outside, hydration matters. We're going to sweat. Our body's going to lose it. We need to put that water back into it. Water is a great cure for us here as we work out. Certainly when it gets hotter, we're losing a lot more. So we need to put even more into our system. So you definitely want to be drinking before your workout. So if you do your workout, say at 8 a.m., when you wake up, start drinking some water, get some into your body. You want to start doing that. Certainly after the run, you absolutely want to rehydrate, put some more into your body. Water definitely does the trick. It's free, it's accessible, it's easy. If you choose to go with some other kind of supplements or sports drinks, you can certainly do that. Obviously, Gatorade being a prominent one, but there's some natural options out there now called Noon is one that immediately comes to mind, N-U-U-N. That's available at Jewel and Osco or even the Run specialty stores I mentioned earlier. It's available at Target. It's a little tablet, and it's electrolytes, and you just drop it into 16 ounces of water. It fizzes. You drink it. It's about $1 per serving, and you get I think there's 10 tabs in a tube. So I mean, there's ways to kind of make sure you get more electrolytes, not just getting water, maybe get a little extra as well. But certainly you'll want to do before and certainly after. In terms of during, 30 minutes, you probably won't need to hydrate, but if you feel you do, maybe you stash a water bottle somewhere. Again, let's say you're running around the local school, maybe you just bring a water bottle and you set it somewhere, and when you cross by that path during one of your walking portions, you go over, you grab some. Nothing will be hurt by that at all. So if you feel you need some during, there's absolutely no harm in doing that.
Any tips for running in the different seasons? Like right now it's pretty humid, and then in the winter, how to layer up for it?
Yeah, so this can get a little more kind of layered, right? This time of year, I'd say the biggest thing, and we talk about seasons, the biggest thing this time of year is absolutely hydration, because the heat and humidity is going to pull so much out of us. We got to put it back into our system. really, and as we kind of get into and you can kind of build on that into the fall, hydration, still a lot of importance there. I really think if we think about the extremes, we think about summer, again, hydration, I think, is absolutely the most important thing in there seasonally. When we get to the winter, now we're talking not, I mean, hydration is still important, but it kind of, again, the heat and humidity isn't extracting as much out of us. There, we're probably talking more about safety. And we're talking more about wearing reflective clothing, running, if you're running outside, running on paths that are clear of ice. Um, Again, wearing reflective clothing or some kind of reflective pieces. Definitely layering up. It's hard to talk about winter running here when it's 92 degrees today. But layering up in the winter is absolutely key. You'll want some kind of base layer that wicks sweat away. And I should say that's just as important in the summer months as well, having a base layer that wicks sweat away. This is called Cool Max, or all the companies maybe call it something different, but it's not just a cotton t-shirt. It's some kind of blend that takes moisture off of the skin. Nike and Adidas, and you could find this stuff at Target, Champion. I think the Champion line's at Target. So this stuff is all over the place, become very kind of mainstream and ubiquitous. So having things that wick moisture away is key. And then in those winter months, layering up. And I think one of the biggest mistakes, again, it's kind of hard to think of now when it's so hot outside, but one of the biggest mistakes people make when they run or work out outside in the winter is that they overdress. The idea, just as a quick little rule of thumb, when you step out the door in the winter to do your workout, you actually want to be like, ooh, it's a little chilly here. You're warm, but it's like, ooh, it's a little chilly, because your body's naturally gonna heat up as you work out, and you'll find yourself, unzipping that jacket a little bit, or maybe taking off the hat, things like that. So you want to be careful not to overdress in the winter, because that could have a pretty negative impact on your workout and performance as well.
I think that might be it for questions. Thank you so much for joining us. I was able to get it on YouTube, so a couple of those came from
Great. Great.
Well.
And so again, I just, in terms of, I hope this sets a lot of you folks on a great path to kind of improve your fitness, and gave you some real, just simple, tangible tips, and certainly a good program to follow. You're blessed out there in Schaumburg to have two terrific running stores in Dick Pine Athletics and Hoffman Estates, I mentioned earlier. Extra Mile Running in Schaumburg. I don't work for either of them. I just know that they're two very credible stores. Both were just named, the magazine I write for, Running Insight, both were just named Best Running Stores in America honorees. So that's about 50 stores across the country that get that designation. Both were just honored. These folks can be great resources for you, for footwear, for apparel, to answer any little questions you have about hydration. These are the people who are right in your neighborhood who are really experts at this. It can give you some great insights. So don't be afraid to use and contact and reach out to the individuals at either of those stores, and get some answers to your specific questions or things you encounter along the way.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us.
Great. Thanks, Annie. Thank you, folks.
Take care.